A very good morning. We're glad you're still with us here on Morning at NTV. The hashtag is exactly that on Twitter. We are also streaming live on Facebook as well as on YouTube. For those that are watching from across Uganda's borders and indeed across the oceans, we are now entering our business update leg of the program, and we are going to be talking export potential of Uganda's fruit and vegetable sector, the fruit and vegetable input to Uganda's economic growth. Before I introduce our special guest this morning who will be helping us understand the industry and the dynamics therein, let me just bring you up to speed with the state of affairs. It's estimated that Uganda exports about 5.8 million tons of fresh fruits and vegetables worth $35 million a year, which is significantly a great capacity for export, only second to Nigeria in sub-Saharan Africa, which produces around 11 million tons a year. 84% of Uganda's workforce is employed in the agricultural sector, and it's contributing to 42% of national gross domestic product and 80% of export earnings. So, fresh fruits and vegetables, the experts have a word for that particular sector: horticulture. Allow me to introduce Mr. Fred Zake, the Executive Director at Hortifresh, one of the sector players in the industry. Very good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for receiving me today.
Take us first into the world of horticulture. What is horticulture?
Thank you so much and good morning, viewers. Horticulture includes flowers, fruits and vegetables, and it's one of the sectors that is predominant in Uganda everywhere you look, and with a lot of potential, as we shall be discussing this morning.
That's right.
Thank you.
Oh, interesting. Flowers is what had predominantly been known out there, especially for those that are not initiated into this particular sector. It now occurs to me that it's much wider than just flowers. The fruit and vegetable included. I would suppose the fruit and vegetable would be another sector. In terms of export potential right now, how much are we putting to the East African market and to the outside world?
Thank you so much, and I will start by just correcting a figure you had quoted. So the figure of 5.8 million tons is production. So Uganda is second to Nigeria in sub-Saharan Africa in terms of production of fresh fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
And it's easy to see when you look around. But only about less than 20% of that is exported. And in terms of exports, I could give you some figures. Our exports are less of fresh fruits and vegetables are less than $75 million going by current figures. But if you put this figure in comparison to South Africa, for example, that exports more than $5 billion, Kenya, Kenya is exporting close to $1 billion.
Okay.
Tanzania, our neighbor, about $700 million. So this figure is like 10% of what Tanzania is exporting. So the potential is huge, especially when you consider our endowment in terms of 2 rainy seasons, in terms of the climatic conditions, the soils. We should be doing much better. That's why I'm saying, and we at Hortifresh are saying, there's a lot of potential.
There's a lot of potential.
Absolutely.
When you speak of billions of dollars being realized by countries including Tanzania and Kenya, there is what I gather to be a fundamental difference between production and export. Uganda seems to be producing so much, but is being beaten in the game of export by countries that are producing less. Why?
So that's a very important question, and one of the reasons is that almost 40% of what is produced is lost due to post-harvest losses. Fruits and vegetables are highly perishable, and if you experience the temperatures we've been experiencing today, this week, you can imagine. So if goods are produced, let's say in Gulu or in Mbarara, Mbale, by the time you transport them to Entebbe, that's a process. By the time you transport them from Entebbe to, let's say, London, Europe, South Sudan, that's another process. So cold chain infrastructure is a key challenge that we face. I can also mention that our production is predominantly smallholder farmer. So aggregating making the smallholder farmers plant the same standardized products, the disciplines involved. When do you spray? What inputs do you use? Can you irrigate? The packaging, branding, funding, financing, all these factors come at play to disadvantage the country. So we can produce, but then we need to work together to make sure that we can export, we can put to the market. So countries like Tanzania, Kenya have got a very solid partnership between government, private sector and development partners.
That's right.
They've got large strategic investors that go in and provide access to markets. They provide branding, they provide credit, they provide training and extension services. These are areas where Uganda needs to improve. And as Hortifresh, we are setting up a close partnership with government and the private sector and development partners to really utilize this opportunity that the country has to expand our exports.
Okay, that's very interesting. I don't know whether there has been any particular intervention on the part of government or efforts to have the government come on board, especially within the workings of private-public partnerships. Where are we right now?
Yeah, so I must say that there has been strong collaboration with government and with development partners. But if you consider where we are starting from, I should say that maybe we need to double, triple that effort.
Yeah.
So the government, the president has set a target to increase exports from the current levels of 6 billion to about 12 billion in about 5 years. So there is a committee called Presidential Committee on Exports and Industrial Development. We are working closely with them. They look at horticulture as a low-hanging fruit because in 2-3 months, you can start harvesting.
Yeah, you can start harvesting.
So those are providing advice, they are providing some support. But importantly, the Ministry of Agriculture has strengthened extension services dedicated for horticulture. And extension means you train, you support, you audit, you advise. Investment in irrigation, investment in infrastructure also helps. For example, Uganda Airlines now provides direct access to our region. We're working with the government to ensure that this can also be extended to long haulage flights. Yeah. We also want cargo planes, because we are competing with countries that have direct routes to so many capitals. They also have cargo planes. This is one of the areas where we need a lot of support. So Export Promotion Board, we've been working with them to promote the country in different destinations. These days there is increasingly a number of trade fairs that are coming up. So there is collaboration, but as I said, we are starting from a very low base. There is indeed need to triple the efforts if the sector is to achieve. And also because the sector responds to the requirements of government, the National Development Plan, the Parish Development Model, export competitiveness, because the sector can contribute jobs, it contributes to agro-industrialization, commercialization. So it's a sector that we really would like to increase. Also, Kampala City Council is a strategic partner of ours. Kampala City Council is championing urban farming within a smart city. And we are exploring ways in which we can work together, because you need very little land and you can utilize it and then produce more high-value crops for export. Okay,
you spoke about extension services being rolled out. I don't know whether from the from government side or sector players coming together to ensure the process is simplified, especially for the smallholder farmers out there. You also give us, you should be able to take us through what are the phytosanitary standards that Ugandans need to look out for, the ones that are not overly technical, but the ones that an average farmer who is either starting out can quickly identify with to be able to produce the best possible product for export.
Yeah, I think let me start with the last question, which is that agriculture is a discipline, it's a science. You don't just go into it and you think you'll make money. So you need to do proper planning.
That's right.
So there are pests that disturb our fruits and vegetables, and there are chemicals that you can apply. But you need to know which ones are allowed, which are not prohibited, and also to know when to spray. So, for example, there should be an interval before you harvest, and you can spray, and then that interval must pass before you harvest it, so that the residues can reduce. So that's one of the areas that we emphasize when we talk to our farmers, when we train them and support them to know what pesticides to use. And there are also some biological controls like traps that you can use so that you reduce the incidence of the pesticides. Export markets in particular are very stringent. They prescribe what you should use, when you should use it, and it's a discipline that we are instilling into our farmers, our growers, to make sure that they adhere to that, not just for the export market, but even for our own local consumption, because we do consume a lot of fruits and vegetables.
That's right. And
these rules of the game help us to be healthy. You talked about extension service. The government has increased the number of extension staff and the inspectors. There was a time when there were like about 60, I think now maybe about 120. But you may find that maybe 300 are needed when you compare with other countries. So while government is stepping up that, we also need self-regulation. We cannot wait for the government to tell us what to do.
That's right.
We need, as an association, as a sector, to ensure that our agronomists go out in the field, they train, they support our farmers so that they can comply and improve our capacity. This is very important because if you don't adhere to the standards, if you don't adhere to good agricultural practices, you find that your products are going to the lower end of the market.
Just staying on that issue, for the last 2 years, there has been no reports of interceptions of consignments, especially to the European Union. Of course, that comes on the backdrop of a debacle where a lot of exports, including other products like fish, was affected because standards had not been met, including the tracing processes. How is the tracing process right now when it comes to either somebody who is doing fruits in Kabale, like apples, to another who is involved in fruits in Bugerere?
That's very important because consumers want to know who has produced what from where. You've seen, for example, in the coffee industry, there is a Buindi, there is a coffee produced in this area. So even for fruits and vegetables, there is now this, when you can be able to trace from farm to fork and to tell a story about what you are doing, then you can attract higher end markets. So it's a journey we've embarked on working with government. Ministry of Agriculture has got a traceability system that aims to identify and link the farmers with their coordinates, so that you can know where this packaging product has been, so that you can know where this product has come from. That effort is well underway, and we also as Hortifresh are supporting that. We need to input data in terms of where our members are, their farmers are, so that also if we can then be able to train. If there is some kind of interception, we can check and see. The interceptions to Europe have reduced, mainly because the Ministry of Agriculture is very vigilant and they can intercept at the airport or before.
Okay.
But we need to be very vigilant because the requirements and rules change. And today you snooze, you lose. So we need to work with government to ensure that the interceptions continue to be reduced. And this is good also for our health because food safety is a factor that we need to look at in the domestic market. Let us stay on top of our game to keep the numbers low, and let us support the partnership between government, the private sector, and the development partners to really ensure compliance.
Let's focus on domestic and the regional market.
Yes.
Many times the proponents of the East African Community Economic Dispensation have been drumming up the idea that we need to be able to trade within ourselves sufficiently for us to stand a greater chance of trading with the outside world. How are we in terms of taking fruits and vegetables to South Sudan, Rwanda, and flowers perhaps to Kenya?
This is very, very important. And when you consider a highly perishable product, if you evacuate it and export it thousands of miles away, the logistical challenges are high. So
enormous.
Charity begins at home. We want to encourage consumption of fruits and vegetables domestically first. And this saved us a lot during COVID. It's one of the miracles that Uganda fared better because fruits and vegetables could be obtained easily. Going to the region and having Uganda Airlines, there is a huge opportunity. South Sudan, DRC, Kenya, Tanzania. Our bananas are exported to Kenya, avocados are exported. These countries then re-export them. So we encourage a lot the exports, but we also need to do value addition locally, packaging, branding, so that when these
you're suggesting
goods go,
Kenya buys from us
yes,
and then does some value addition and makes a lot more money.
Yeah, just like the case is for maize. They buy raw maize, clean it up, package it properly, fortify it, use, and then they make a lot of money out of it. So even Uganda, our bananas are going to Kenya, our onions, our avocado, they go to Kenya, then they rebrand them properly and sell them to high-end markets. Recently, the president of Kenya was talking about that for milk. That let Uganda supply raw milk, we process it and make a lot of money. So fruits and vegetables is another example where we need to add value locally. We need to brand. The way government has done for tourism, for coffee, we need strategic interventions in this sector, because our banana, our pineapple, our melon, these are unequaled globally, but we are underselling them. We need a concerted effort to brand, to package properly, produce of Uganda, Hortifresh, then we can make more money for our people. This is one of the quickest wins, because in 2-3 months
you're able to harvest.
Yeah.
All right, as we enter the final bend of this discussion, we cannot forget the role of women in an industry like this. When it comes to availability of resources, including capital, for women to be able to be part of this, I don't know how easy it is made for them, or is it a sector that is predominantly male? Especially in terms of ownership and rollout of resources. The labor aspect could be different.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've touched on very important point. One of them is access to finance. This is a sector where our members are really asking for support to enhance access to finance, because running the inputs that you need, it's intensive agriculture, the cold chain. Access to finance for fruits and vegetables is limited, and when you go to the banks, the instruments and tools they have are not geared properly for agriculture. So our members are asking for a revolving fund that can enable them to boost affordable finance to enable them to grow. Secondly, you've mentioned about gender. We observe that women are very much involved in the production on the farms.
Yes.
We have a deliberate effort to try and make sure that they also are well represented in terms of management and ownership. We are currently doing a survey so that we can have these baseline numbers, so that we can then be proactive in terms of stimulating offtake of the women. But also let me point out that our men, and with due respect, many of our men, the young men, are involved in border. And this is a sector, horticulture, that can attract the young generation that we have today, because you don't have to wait for a year. You don't need to have 10 acres. And then if you are disciplined and you work properly with an off-taker, you plant, you can make money.
That's right.
This is we want men also to get involved in this sector, at all levels. That way, we create jobs for the youth, we create wealth, livelihoods, and the incomes.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Fred Zake, Executive Director at Hortifresh, Fresh Fruits and Vegetable Association, for the perspective and insight into the horticulture industry and what is going on there in terms of its ability to transform Uganda in as far as economic growth is concerned. That will do it for this discussion, but Morning at NTV continues. We shall be speaking Afro basketball a little bit shortly when we return from this break.